Alright, I'm back, and it's been a long time. I've been away for personal reasons, and I couldn't prioritize gaming exactly. And I can't do now either because I'm about to move. But I will talk a little bit about strategies, and we will see when I start a new campaign. It might not be immediately, we will have to see. And there are also other plans I have. I should really try to finish the Hammer of the Gods campaign I have on this channel. Uh, and I also want to try to play Angband, which is a dungeon crawler. Uh, but I need a new keyboard for that, or at least I should have one. I have a very good keyboard, a mechanical one, but it's shortened, and this is a keyboard heavy game. It's very old school. And there's supposed to be a new patch for it quite soon that is going to take away a few bugs, so I'll at least wait for that. Uh, strategies. We're going to talk about the militant races um, primarily, but I will also touch into other races as well because some of the things I speak about are, of course, relevant for them also. The militant races are not something I per instinct have prioritized because you always want to have a strong late game and kind of build yourself up with the most advanced buildings and units. Uh, the militant races need to strike quickly and strike hard. They need to have their strong suit in the early game. And Hadrix is a much better player than I am. He is. But I watched him play the Klackons at one point, and he was complaining about how weak they were. But in the early game, he went into a pact with his immediate neighbor. You're not supposed to do that with the Klackons. You're supposed to expand endlessly, so you have much more land and population than all the other wizards. And they also have, a huge population and production bonus, all that. Yeah. So who would be the militant races? I would say if we go by pure definitions, it would be the Lizardmen, the Barbarians, the Gnolls, and I would also add the Nomads. And when it comes to the Mirren races, the Trolls would definitely be it. And of course, you have outliers or some races that perhaps touch a little bit into the militant aspect, like dwarves, perhaps. But I don't think you could say that. So I'm going to switch up now so we can enter the game screen, and I also have crap. I also have the manual here, the newest one, because there has been a patch recently, 1.5, and it removes a few bugs at least. It adds some new visuals for jackal riders and galleys or something, or car cracks, or whatever those ships are called. Will be interesting to see. It also nerfs power link a bit. Instead of being able to harvest in unlimited mana per turn, you get 7,500, I think. And I think that's warranted. But I'm also glad that time stop wasn't nerfed. As you know, I played the last game I played sorcery exclusively. And the reason I was able to use time stops so efficiently was because I had power link, which gave me so much mana in just a few rounds. And now perhaps there's a cap on that, so sure. I can approve, but I'm glad time stop wasn't nerfed, actually. Yeah, so I think the game should be kept much as it is. And now we're going for the switch up. Crap. Wait. I have to hide my giant collection there. where are we? Yes, so here we are. Now you can see my screen. You can see the manual here, which we might enter, I don't know. If needed, we will enter that. So this is the new screen, and there's a new button, load mod. I don't know. It's for mods. I'm not going to use those, at least not in the immediate sense. I have been in here, and I think continents mixed is a default. Anyway, we'll just select something here. We can talk a little about theory first. I believe Caster Magic is a game where you should prioritize your strengths instead of compensate for your weaknesses. That it might not be so in every system. I'm sure there are game systems where you should compensate for your weaknesses, for instance. Like poker, perhaps? Is that a game where you need to compensate for your weaknesses? Because it doesn't matter how big your winning hand is. It only matters that people believe you have a big winning hand. I don't know. But I truly believe that you should play to your strengths within the system, not compensate for weaknesses. But the game maker has put in what is called the point of diminishing returns. So if you play to a strength too much, you won't benefit from it as much. And the most immediate example of that would be if you combine the Omniscient and just went for 1, because the first spellbook gives 16% bonuses, where the rest give you 3.5% bonuses. So you might want to spread it out. And that Omniscient trait is actually a good thing for the Militant Races, because they're dependent on a good early game. And they're not dependent on as many spellbooks. So, because within the time that late game arrives, like truly late game, you should have won or lost already. So this might be a possibility, like just throwing that out there. The Omniscient trait, it should be spread out, but not necessarily, because you might also prioritize one school and hope that you find some more. So if you're going on a search like this, you're a node master. I don't know if life magic will be good for that. Let's just pretend. You might find a few more spellbooks and get more bonuses. And perhaps that would be a tactic if you ran a very economical game. Like if you are the dwarves. And you... you're the dwarves. Crap. Like this. And you want to... you get a lot of gold now. You can use the gold for mana. And if you find some spellbooks, you'll be okay. And I was thinking about how much of a chance is it to find one spellbook of the school you want, and I would say that per game it's at least 90% to find the first spellbook in what you want, in the school you want. But finding 2 is like 50-50. And finding 3, then you'll be lucky. Something like that. So you can't depend on much more than 1. That's what I'm trying to say. But this would be actually a good setup for the dwarves, I think. But you also got to remember, I played a game like that where try to capitalize on the production bonuses of dwarves, and that was a game I lost. Maybe I played it bad, but because I prioritized building swordsmen and dwarves don't expand well and all that. But the other game where I spread out the effort, I won, right? So, yeah. It's been a long time, so I've started forgetting the game. I'm probably a bit worse at playing now. And I also, hopefully I haven't forgotten. It's the strategies I've been thinking about. It's a bit hard. What's a bit hard? It's a bit hard to have a complete overview of all the spells and abilities. And I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying that I have thought about a few strategies. So, when it comes to schools of magic, we're assuming now that we are playing a militant race. I believe that sorcery is the worst one because it's purely it's a late game form of magic. One alternative is that if you played Nomads and you were an astrologer and you entered the nodes with horsemen who rode around, and then you cast confusion on the biggest monsters and perhaps got created artifacts with minus the spell save. And if it is so that confusion makes the monster disappear, then maybe you could clear a bunch of big nodes with that. You could also argue that you could use focus magic on rangers and perhaps even the horsemen if needed. Focus magic cannot be cast in combat, so if it's dispelled and you're dependent upon magic damage, you will revert back to bows again. Yeah, because that's what focus magic does, right? It makes the ranged bow attack, it makes it magical, but you can't cast it in combat. If you were to play sorcery, I would recommend that perhaps you don't go for all the books, to put it that way. Nature magic is the weakest of all forms of magic. It's just well balanced. It can do everything if you have all the spell books. I feel that nature magic, you can also, if you run a terraforming game, it's an economical game, then it can be viable. And also if you combine it with population growth. Chaos magic, I think that's the second worst for the militant races because it has the second strongest late game. You get some summons and all that. But what do you need them for when you have your units, which are supposed to be strong? It has this spell Flaming Blades, which is very good for certain races, perhaps Nomads, perhaps Elves. To get that, be guaranteed that spell, you need 2 spell books, but you probably could get away with just 1 and trade for it, perhaps. And you also have this spell Chaos Channels, because when I talked about compensating for weaknesses, if you're the Gnolls, for instance, you can't attack flyers at all. So either you would need web, or perhaps a combination of web and chaos channels, because then you get half the units flying and half of them with fire breath. And this is a question I have, because if you have barbarians or units with fire breath and you attack a flying unit, do you then only attack with the breath attack or thrown attack, or is it the entirety of your attack that is included? Because if it's only the thrown attack, you're still pretty weak, but I don't think that's the case. Another question I have is, does holy weapon and alchemy or alchemical weapons, does it stack? I don't think so. I think it would be hugely overpowered. But yeah, those are questions. Relevant questions, because barbarians can't have alchemical or magical weapons, but they can have holy weapons. Yeah, and this manual isn't the only one, because here's a hint. In the game for DOS, which you have downloaded if you have downloaded it from good old games, the creator of the game speaks about how he thought when he created all those spells and races and all that, or modified them. So there are huge boxes of text. And now it's a bit outdated, because I suppose the DOSBox version of the game isn't really updated anymore. I'm not sure. But one of the things is that he spoke about how the barbarians are supposed to work well with a specific spell school, and are getting into something. In either case, let's talk about death. Death first. Death is good in the early game, because you get all those undeads. You can try to make a snowball out of it. And I suppose it could work with a bunch of early game heavy hitters, heavy units. You also get skeletons to use as free garrisons, so your expansion gets easier. And when you have gained an advantage, then you can use city curses and taking over the warp nodes to just weaken your enemies, while you have much more territory than them. So let's say they are like a higher race, like highmen or something. You can just curse their cities into oblivion, and you will have much more territory, so you'll still be stronger. I wonder, warp node is kind of counterintuitive for my part, because it would still be better to take over the node for you, because you only get half the bonus or something like that. How does that combine if the guy has astrology like the old node mastery? Don't know. Can you dispel a warped node? I think you can. Here's a combination, like play to your strengths. And now, if we were talking about high men, they get a 15% discount for their buildings, older buildings. So if you combine that with death, which gave more production, or life, which gave more gold, you could breeze through the buildings very quickly. And if you had cult leader, you would get the religious buildings, which with much stronger bonuses, much more quickly. And if you had death magic, you could combine it with dark ritual, which also affects your religious buildings, which you get earlier. So you could make a rush for that. Or you could have life magic and get strong units. Who knows? Yeah, but so that would be an example of playing to your strengths. And I'm not going to go into the artificer and like heavy hero focus stuff right now. I don't think so. I don't think so, at least. Or will I? So let's be specific. Let's take the Lizardmen first, and they are of course map dependent, just like the dwarves are map dependent, because with dwarves you can add or remove minerals, and they get a lot of bonuses from minerals. Lizardmen get a lot of movement or mobility, the more water there is, naturally. So a map with a lot of islands would give them the ability to isolate their enemies. I would almost feel like that was cheating, but I could perhaps do it if we were on high difficulty levels. Otherwise, I would feel like I would have to play mixed continents, which is the default, I think. And I was thinking, okay, now I forgot. Life. Life is the strongest for the militant races because it enhances units. It must be. And it's especially good for barbarians, I think, because that gives them magical weapons. So life, like an overweight of your spellbooks, should be a life. Perhaps, if you're going the omniscient part. And you could combine it with a lot of bonuses, like this. Yeah. But back to... I have seen how strong Lizardmen can be when they are governed by life magic, like a life wizard. They almost rival Hammerhands. But what I was thinking about was a certain strategy. Let's say that you wanted to expand endlessly. And here's the strategy. Yeah, let's just say this. Okay, let's remove this. Okay, you will have a lot of population growth. You will not have a problem with sending settlers in every direction. And I believe your settlers have 2 movement. I think they were nerfed and then unnerfed. So yeah, you would be able to settle all the land very quickly. And you would have to have nature magic because there's this spell like plane shift, which makes it so that you shift a plane that you're on. But here's the difficulty. You can only shift into a land square, not an ocean square, even if you're a Lizardman. And you can also not shift into a node or a tower, I assume. And I think that's stupid. Let's say if you plane shifted and your units drowned, then that would be your fault, right? So I don't agree with that. And I also think that it should be like automatic. If there's a node in the way or a city in the way, you should be teleported to an adjacent point, basically. And perhaps you'll end up in the ocean then. But now it isn't like that. The game has its own logic. But if you then have Earth lore from nature magic, you could discover what land is on the other side, place your lizard stacks there, and teleport them over. And you could even place like heavy stacks of settlers, like 4 or even 8 settlers or something, and just teleport them over. And with all that population, you could populate both planes really early. And the reason I mentioned Rune Master here is that arcane spells are researched 100% faster. And this would also be good for a hero-focused strategy because you would get the hero spells faster, interestingly. Very interestingly. But would they be cheaper? I suppose not. I suppose not. It's also good if you want to be like a global thing, if you have a limited magic. So that's one strategy. And I was thinking about what if you combine it with Draconians. Draconians could do as the Lizardmen do, spread out like hell. But they're more like a late game race, I think. They're not an early bloomer. So that's this spread out tactic. It might not work as well with nature magic, I feel. Because it's kind of a weaker form of magic. So there's that. But you only would have to find one spellbook, and yeah, it could work. It could work. So Lizardmen and Draconians. I also considered using dwarves for this, and now I'll show you why. let's say we select dwarves. And I'll show you something very nice. We have alchemy because we want our goal to become mana in the late game. Otherwise, it's a waste. Gaia's Blessing gives a triple production bonus for every forest. Roots of Genesis makes every tile into a forest, unless it's grasslands that belongs to you. And tundras are not affected. And so you have to convert it yourself if you wanted to, and I would do so because forests still produce food. And they give a 9% bonus. I believe forests and hills gives 3% bonus to production, and mountains gives 7%. Okay, a city has... Does it have 13 tiles if it's unimpeded by other cities? Is it that much? In that case, it's a 9%. That's 117 production bonus. For almost... It wouldn't be fully as much, but for almost every city. And if you combine that with the dwarves who have 50% better workers, or they generate 3 workers or production instead of 2 or something like that, you would have an immense production across the line. But this bonus comes very late. Of course, the dwarves would grow much quicker. The dwarves have 20 plus in population each round. The normal is 60, and Klackons have 120. So that means that the Klackons are grows 6 times more than dwarves. And I wonder if Gaia's Blessing give +6 in population. Sorry, did I say that? Blah blah blah. I meant Guardian. If it gives blah blah blah. Yeah, it increases your population by 6. Does that mean 60? Because that means the dwarves would be at 80. Is that the logical conclusion? I think it should be, but it might not be. So with this strategy, you would move towards a place where you could convert all your gold into mana. At one point, you would get an immense amount of gold from production. And you would, like I said, compensate. Your dwarves would really grow quickly. The negative here is that this bonus comes late, and Life Magic has a spell. I think it's called Inspirations, which give 100% bonus to production, so almost as good. But of course, you would probably have a bit smaller population then, and a smaller population cap. I don't think there is a population cap anymore. So if you wanted to play like a heavily like agricultural dwarven race, and perhaps even make the map mineral heavy and have a lot of rivers and wetlands, just to have this fertile world, it would be really interesting. But this strategy would also, Omniscient and Guardian, work really well with the Klackons, I think. Here, you would have to look for one spellbook here, which is doable, because with the 120 growth and blah blah blah, so how much population does that? So you have like 10 extra population, so you would grow at like 220 each round. You would grow like you would probably grow like 3 or 4 times faster than a normal race. So if you could even have cities that were just dedicated to pumping out settlers, yeah, and just spreading all over. And since you have a production bonus, you will produce those settlers faster. And I wonder if the Klackons already produce settlers faster. I think they do. They have a discount on settlers, I think. Yeah, so you could just pump settlers and never go empty of a population. Or at least it would be exceedingly rare. And if you found other spellbooks, it would really help. Like if you found a death spellbook, it would give you even more production. The Klackons are not as good at production as dwarves because they lack the advanced production buildings. But still. So there are two different philosophies. Either you use this population boost with nature magic to compensate in the form of dwarves, or you use it to play upon your strength to an extreme degree. And it would be so interesting. Yeah, so we talked about... another thing is that the Klackons have a bonus to defense, so you might consider, whatever you do with them, you might consider adding Tacticians, which gives +1 defense, and perhaps Guardian, I don't know. Like, if you wanted to, yeah, something like this, it would make for a weak late game, but you would be so incredibly strong in the early game. Yeah. So that's the Klackons. When it comes to trolls, I don't know much about them, or I know about them, but I can't think. Of course, you could use death magic and bloodlust and make them into undead with double bonus towards normal units, double damage or whatever. So you could perhaps do a combination of death magic and omniscient, yeah, to give them more production. That's what I can think of. You can combine trolls with perhaps a lot of life magic. Who knows? Interesting. I would not really recommend doing nature magic with them because, I mean, you have regeneration. Flying regenerating, no, it's too obscure, too late. When it comes to chaos, you could use chaos to be an astrologer and hunt nodes and cast fireball upon everything, like if you were the nomads. As you know, the nomads have this weakness towards famine because they can't build a granary, so they're really crippled by enemy death wizards. I don't really like them, but I suppose they can be good at node raiding, and I think astrologer is kind of a must. Yeah. When it comes to barbarians, I would go for life magic. And I would go for this. I would go for what the hell? Like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You still have 7 spellbooks, and you can't. Your units can't really be dispelled. That's the thing. So you could stack up with unit enhancements and perhaps create swordsmen, raid the world. But yeah, the next campaign I will do will be the Gnolls, and the Gnolls have many weaknesses. They're the earliest early game race, so they need to strike hard and fast, really fast. They don't get advanced buildings like at all. All the other races hate them pretty badly, and they can't attack air units. They don't have ranged at all. So here, one thing, if you could reduce unrest by being a cult leader, that's like compensating for weaknesses, right? And you could use chaos magic. I think you get chaos channels here to get these flyers. Nature to have web. I would actually try to do it like this then, because then I would get a lot of magic from life. Even if I have one nature spellbook, I would be certain to get the spell web at one point. And the same with chaos channels. Let's see here, blah blah blah. Yeah, blah blah blah. No. Yeah, if I have 4 spellbooks like this, I get to choose. No, I don't get that. So I would need 5. Yeah, that's a bit much. Yeah, okay, 5. So 4 then. Yeah, I would probably get chaos channels, but that's not what I had in mind, because the worst, let's say you were a life Gnoll, and you could, that's my great fear, like you have these strong units. I would not pick alchemy. Alchemy is tempting, but I will not pick it because we have holy weapons, and holy weapons and alchemical weapons don't stack, I think. So the fright is an enemy wizard who is draconian, who's flying and you can't touch him, and he is a sorcerer. And sorcery is pretty good at fighting life magic, or so I've heard, because you can just dispel the enhancements on the units. But here, we can stack spells upon the units because they can't really be dispelled, or yeah, they can't really be dispelled because there's a 200% chance extra resistance to it. You still get a lot of spellbooks, and you won't have a late game anyway. You can find more. There's like 3 you're lacking. You could perhaps find 1 more or something like that. And you're a warlord, so yeah. And you got to remember, Gnolls have +2 attack and one extra in movement. So this would be the future campaign, and I feel like Heavenly Light is almost a necessity. They gain magical weapons, okay. Yeah, because I would need something to produce mana for me. We're the Gnolls, remember? And I would forgo healing because I would want every... Fuck. This is autistic, but what if I chose every unit enhancement possible and looked away from Heavenly Light and just thought that, okay, I'll find magic somewhere. I'll find magic somewhere. Charisma works on heroes too, and you get the hero spells like summoning heroes faster, so that's something to think about. So this could be you both have very strong units and you could have heroes pretty quickly. So yeah, I gotta admit, I don't know very much about life magic, the later spells, but True Sight would be a must. And I feel like I know that endurance would be in line with the unit enhancement stuff. But resurrection, what is that? Yeah, maybe I would do that. So like I would have even before I get Wolf Riders or something like that, I would use this. I would stack all these boons upon my halberdiers. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 7 spells. And just send them out in the world. And just beat down anything I can find. And the enemy wizards could try to dispel stuff from me. Would it work? It would be interesting. Blah blah blah. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, like this. Does this stack with Warlord? I don't think so, because it doesn't stand in the manual that there's a level above Ultra Elite, so yeah. So for the late game, I would make myself 100% harder to spell than again. So everything about me would be about not getting dispelled. Yeah, that would be... Yeah. If you have like... Fuck. Yeah, so... What the hell? Yeah, so my pikeman would be extremely good. Of course. Yeah. So that's a possibility. Another possibility is either as barbarians or highmen, you could do this. And you lack 1, don't you? Yeah, so you lack 1. So you need to find 1 spellbook, and your spells, not the summoning spells. Every enhancement, everything. Okay, so it's overland and not in combat. Okay. Huh. But even so, it would be, you would have like a 50% reduction in cost, or 45% reduction in cost. So you could just cast spells. That's interesting. Now as the Gnolls, this would be for highmen or barbarians. But now as the Gnolls, our spells would be expensive. But when we have them upon a unit, they would be hard to remove. And it would be playing to our utmost strength, like having strong units and only that. So that's the tactic I suggest for myself to the next game. So just to reiterate, this is what I will do. We are the Gnolls now. Really quick here. We will forgo everything. Endurance and true sight like this. And I've Lionheart and invulnerability, blah blah blah. Wow, that's good, but I still feel like This is like a cheat code. So we would have an ultra elite hero with all our badass men. Can't forgo that. Kali. And here you can see the Gnolls. Like the Dark Elves, the Draconians, they absolutely hate them, and Hyman. But still, we could probably cast Just Cause. And sure, the other races would not cooperate so willingly, but they would still be under us. So we'd have access to advanced unit late in the game, and we would have a lot of territory because we've beaten everyone down. And here's the thing, our Gnoll Halberdiers will have +2 attack, in addition to being 1 level higher in the beginning, +1 movement, and all those enhancements upon them. Flyers would be somewhat of a problem, but we would get wizards from the other races to deal with that and combine it with True Sight, for instance, if they were invisible. That's how I'm thinking, and so I would spam Halberdiers first, and then I would add Wolf Raiders to give them this terrain bonus, so they would move faster. And if they had endurance, they would have like 3 movement, and with the terrain bonus stuff from the Wolf Raiders, they would be able to move really quickly. So that's how I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. So I hope I did not forget anything. Orcs and beastmen are not militant races. I don't feel they are late game races. I mentioned the trolls. How much I we have them here. The barbarians I spoke about, the gnolls I spoke about, the Klackons, the lizardmen, nomads, and the trolls. Yeah, so we covered everything, and we covered a lot of aspects. And these are just my thoughts, of course. There probably are, maybe I'm thinking wrong, there are probably more efficient strategies out there. The most efficient strategy revolves around heroes and items, of course, but now we're talking about making use of a militant race and striking hard early with their units. You could combine it with death and have like this rolling undead horde following in its wake and just garrison cities with skeletons. But yeah, I feel like it's kind of counterintuitive. Like gnolls are this primitive race, and you use life magic to make them even stronger. So yeah, you have like ultra elite units early on that can't be dispelled. That's the thought. So with that, I say goodbye for now. And like I said, I'm moving quite soon, so I don't know when I can start a new game. And if I do, I would have to probably take a break for a month or 2 or something like that in the middle of it. So we'll just see. It will have to be open. So with that, I wish you a good night.